Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker, for calling me to speak and for granting this adjournment debate on geothermal energy in Clackmannanshire. I'm grateful to talk about this potentially exciting, new, greener, renewable technology within the energy sector and its ramifications for Clackmannanshire, Scotland and, of course, the whole of the United Kingdom. Known as the Wee County, Clackmannanshire is the smallest council area in Scotland, situated in the south-western corner of my constituency of Oakle and South Perthshire. It is tucked away beneath the Oakle Hills, flanked by Stirling in the west, Kinrossshire to the east, and the River Forth to the south. Despite being home to successful companies such as Diageo, United Glass, William Brothers Brewery, and innumerable SMEs, Clacks is a former industrial and mining community and still has some of the most deprived areas in our country. Meanwhile, geothermal energy is a form of renewable energy in its relative infancy within the United Kingdom, with opportunities still being identified and explored and which is struggling to make the mainstream of energy provision in the United Kingdom. Well, I'm sure no one would suggest that adjournment debates usually only cater to a limited audience, addressing the niche interests of members with limited implications for the wider country. Now, on the surface, this debate of a relatively minor energy source in one of the smallest council areas in the country may be ungenerously described as such. However, given the limited exploitation of geothermal energy in the United Kingdom and the potential for its use in Clackmannanshire, the implications for investment and development of geothermal and for the wider industry sector in the country are enormous. However, yes, I will give way.
Mr Deputy Speaker, I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way, and I'm here to support him and obviously congratulate him on bringing this forward. Does the honourable member not agree that the impact that projects such as this have on the local economy has to be a significant consideration for government, especially as it pertains to long-term benefits? Everybody in the United Kingdom could benefit from a project just like this.
I thank the honourable member for his intervention, and I couldn't agree more. And one of the reasons why I put in for this debate this evening is to espouse the long-term benefits of some of these projects and how that will, of course, align with the country's industrial strategy. So before I get too ahead of myself, I wanted to first look at the broader industry and the place of geothermal within that industry. According to the House of Commons Library, the total energy sector within the UK was worth £24 billion in 2016. In the same year, the industry as a whole invested £11 billion, the equivalent of 1 in every £16 invested in the UK. It is an industry which directly employs 148,000 workers and supports a further 582,000 through the supply chain, consulting and other energy-related activities. That's a total of 730,000 jobs supported in the UK by the energy sector. Meanwhile, around 22,000 in Scotland are employed in the energy sector, with oil and gas a major part of that. Therefore, the energy sector represents an important industry, not just in terms of contribution to the total GDP of the United Kingdom, but in terms of jobs, investments, research and development, as well as supporting industries. Energy is important. It heats our homes, it cooks our meals, it runs our appliances, amenities and communication devices, without which our tablets, laptops and businesses could not function. In short, it impacts on every aspect of 21st century life. Now, the 19th and 20th century sources of energy have long since ceased to be seen as the future. Renewable energy sources are an ever-increasing part of the suite of energy sources, and Scotland has been at the forefront of such innovations, with wind and sea power particularly prevalent within its contribution. I wholeheartedly support these steps and hope the UK will continue to be at the forefront of such renewable energy options, not just wind and sea, but others too, such as geothermal. So, you may ask, Mr Deputy Speaker, why geothermal energy? Well, in simple terms, geothermal energy is valuable because it is generated and stored in the earth. It is heat extracted directly from the earth, and it is generally available via shallow geothermal ground source heat pumps, which use the heat stored in the earth to generate electricity or provide heating. Geothermal is considered a renewable form of energy due to the vast amount of heat inside the earth and the continuous production of additional heat that is derived effectively from the Earth's core. It is also important to understand that geothermal energy is not the same as fracking, as some have tried to claim. For clarity, geothermal technology uses things like mine water, closed boreholes and surface water, none of which have any similarity to fracking. Fracking is a process used to break up rock at great depths depths to release gas from ancient plant deposits. In the UK, this typically happens 2.5 kilometres below the surface, using a process involving large diameter boreholes and huge hydraulic pressures, which are part of the concerns currently being debated. By contrast, geothermal, the typical closed-loop borehole, such as the one that would be used in Clackmannanshire, is no more than 200 metres deep, with small diameter, and is installed in the same way to the same standards as a water well. We should also consider the environmental impact, or relative lack thereof, of geothermal energy. It does not require combustion, unlike traditional energy plants, so they emit very low levels of greenhouse gases. It also eliminates the mining and transportation processes involved in fossil fuel energy generation. And finally, it takes up very little surface land, putting it among the smallest footprint per kilowatt of any power generation technology, including coal, nuclear and other renewables. I will give way.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for giving way, and I congratulate him for securing this very important and interesting debate. But when he's speaking specifically about the size of these developments, would he agree with me, because he mentioned wind energy earlier on, that there's a concern in my Moray constituency and in many parts of Scotland and indeed the UK that large-scale wind farms are scarring our communities, and indeed Moray has reached saturation point for the number of wind turbines and wind farms we could get, and really we should be looking at smaller methods of renewable energy?
I thank my honourable friend for his contribution, and I wouldn't dare to claim no more about his constituency than the honourable member does. But what I would say is that as part of the industrial strategy, a key part of that is having more regional and smaller scale power generation facilities and projects, and that's something I'm hoping to advocate here tonight. So, as I was saying, for comparison, the carbon footprint estimate for an oil boiler is 310 to 550 g CO2 EQ/kWh. For those who don't know, grams of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilowatt hour of electricity generated. So for gas boilers, it is 210 to 380. Biomass boilers is somewhere between 5 and 200, although typically they are below 100. And the carbon footprint range for a solar thermal system is 10 to 35 grams of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilowatt hour of electricity generated. Now, in comparison, geothermal is only 10. As a result of this, geothermal energy systems are becoming increasingly popular low-carbon energy system of choice. And yet, Mr Deputy Speaker, is barely utilised in the United Kingdom. In a Westminster Hall debate on clean growth energy back in March of this year, there was a great deal of enthusiastic support among the small number of members present. Those who spoke in support of geothermal energy in that debate came from those areas where it already exists, or at least where it is planned. I do not consider it a coincidence that where geothermal energy has already been explored and exploited, there was support and enthusiasm for it. It evidently works. Indeed, we should take note of the enthusiasm expressed in that debate. It is a clean energy source with the potential to bring jobs and investment to our constituencies. And given the UK's long history of mining, I refuse to believe that it is only Clackmannanshire that has the potential for geothermal energy to be developed. There was, of course, one person in that Westminster Hall debate who enthusiastically and supported the development of geothermal energy in the United Kingdom, and that is, of course, the Minister responding this evening. The UK has targeted that by 2020, 15% of its energy will be met by renewables. In 2008, renewables constituted just 2.25% of energy sources in the UK. By 2014, this had increased to 7.1% and 8.3% by 2015. I could not find more recent figures than that, but I'd be grateful to hear from the Minister in her response how the UK is performing in 2018 and how it expects to meet its target in 2020. Now, although geothermal is still relatively new to the UK, this type of energy is not a particularly new technology. For example, geothermal heating is used in over 70 countries already, while 24 already use geothermal electricity production systems. Furthermore, 5 countries around the world, Iceland, El Salvador, Costa Rica, Kenya and the Philippines, generate more than 15% of their electricity from geothermal sources. However, across the whole of the United Kingdom, there are only 9 energy projects that I could find in operation or planned in the UK. 4 are in Cornwall, 2 are in North East England, 1, the original, in Southampton, 2 small mine water geothermal schemes are in operation in Scotland, Shettleston in Glasgow, Glenfinnans in Fife, as well as the forthcoming project in Kilmarnock. To put that in context, the 5th largest economy in the world is currently being outdone by the 106th, 101st, 76th, 68th and 39th largest economies, respectively. In terms of geothermal development and energy production, we still have a way to go. Evidently, we can and should be doing more to invest and develop it as a clean energy source. In 2013, only 900 jobs in the UK were supported by geothermal energy. 500 directly supported, 400 were indirect. However, given the potential for expansion of this technology in the UK, there's a great deal of potential for the jobs market in both the direct and indirect senses. These would be high-quality, skilled jobs that the development of this sector would support. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, here is the crux of the debate. Why Clackmannanshire? Well, development of geothermal in the UK, as I've said, has been relatively limited so far, in large part due to the availability of cheap North Sea oil and gas. Now, geothermal energy is plentiful beneath the United Kingdom, but admittedly it is not readily accessible except in specific locations. And one such of those locations, Mr Deputy Speaker, is Clackmannanshire. Abandoned coal mines in Clackmannanshire could become a source of energy there, as water has poured into the mines since they were closed and thus has been warmed up by the rock surrounding it. The water is hot enough that it can now be used for low-temperature heating systems through a heat exchanger, and still even more potential to be used for energy production. Now, I will give way.
He's speaking extremely knowledgeably about this subject, and I bow to his knowledge in this area. This idea of creating electricity from heat, though, wouldn't it also extend to, for example, sewage? Would it not be possible to create district heating systems? Is it the same technology? Maybe the Honourable Gentleman can enlighten me.
I thank the Honourable Gentleman for his intervention. In terms of district heating systems, yes. In terms of sewage systems, I'm not sure. And it's something that we should definitely explore and look into. But when we look at the broader uses of this technology, and certainly in energy production, electricity production, as we've seen in other countries around the world, absolutely. And when you look at some of the exciting direct use of geothermal energy in countries like Kenya, it has been used for uses as broad as hydroponic farming to powering small communities. So I think there are a range of exciting projects, and that's why it's so important we get the pilot in and we get the investment now so we can realise the true potential of this technology. Now, while it's not often that Clackmannanshire has a competitive advantage over some of the other communities locally, it is true that we have a relatively unique geographical opportunity. But the reason to invest in Clackmannanshire is more than that. Clackmannanshire suffers from high levels of deprivation and a significantly high level of fuel poverty. Local authority surveys have identified that 1 in 3 households in Clackmannanshire suffer from fuel poverty, rising to 49% amongst pensioners. Heat accounts for nearly half of all energy consumption in Clacks and a third of its carbon emissions. Roughly 80% of that is consumed in homes and other buildings. The local economy is also vulnerable. It is a higher than average unemployment rate, the 3rd lowest job density in Scotland, below average earnings, and all of the local authorities of Scotland, Clackmannanshire has the lowest rating of skilled qualification levels. Now, none of this, Mr Deputy Speaker, has taught Clackmannanshire down. It may be known as the wee county, but as I said in my maiden speech, it's not the size that matters, but it's what you do with it that counts. And so I want to highlight some of the challenges that currently exist in Clackmannanshire, but also give you an idea of what significant investment in the area would help to overcome. That's why I want to look at the difference it could make in Clackmannanshire. Now, it goes without saying that investment would bring valuable, skilled jobs to the area, and that is important. But it's more than that. It will also help develop spin-off businesses which would support the industry both directly and along the supply chain. And I think we've seen that already. I was lucky enough at the weekend to have an interview with BBC, and already we had local companies and local champions of geothermal technology come forward just in the last few days who are very keen to work with the government and other public and private sector bodies to help again forward projects not only in the county but in the wider region too. Developing geothermal energy in Clackmannanshire could see an area become renowned in the UK, not just as a leading low-carbon energy provider, but also for its energy innovation.
Remember, give way.
I will give way.
I'm very, very grateful to my honourable friend for making such a powerful case for this initiative in his constituency, and I'm sure there's other parts of Scotland which could benefit from his insight as well. But in terms of the UK Government's industrial strategy, I wonder what opportunities he can see for this being delivered as part of that, and does he recognise, as I do, that this government strategy could in fact deliver many projects in Scotland as part of that overall initiative?
Hear, hear. I thank my honourable friend for his intervention, and I couldn't agree more. The industrial strategy was about having a stronger blueprint for all of Britain, and it's important that the investment, especially in reserved areas like energy, is spread throughout the United Kingdom in a fair manner to attract the true opportunities that are found in each individual area. And as I was saying, the opportunity of Clackmannanshire would make the county more attractive to investors, businesses and developers by helping to establish a resilient, environmentally friendly heating and energy system. It could provide affordable, low-carbon heating and energy to households and businesses locally. Furthermore, by delivering an estimated 50% savings for the local authority, it would help free up much-needed additional funding to invest back in local services which have faced substantial cuts. The Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy has stated that we need to move away from the One Energy network and move towards smaller, more regional networks. This is precisely what we can do and what we hope to do in Clackmannanshire. Therefore, by helping us reduce the energy bills, it will help us create a more stable, affordable energy market in the area, which is central to improving and maintaining the living standards in the community. This will all, in turn, help Clackmannanshire become more self-sustaining, allowing it to support businesses, improve its education opportunities, and tackle social inequalities and the fuel poverty crisis. Now, geothermal energy is not the solution to every single issue currently experienced in Clackmannanshire, despite what you hear from me tonight. But it would be a significant step in the right direction. One of my biggest frustrations since becoming an MP almost a year ago today has been the devolve and forget approach that has been allowed to permeate since devolution nearly 20 years ago. But energy is not devolved, nor does devolution mean separate, nor should it act as a wall. Devolution was just a means to bring powers closer to the people who need them in order to deliver things better. However, this is still the UK Parliament. Scotland still is part of the UK. And to be clear, without Scotland, there is no United Kingdom. Scotland has the infrastructure and expertise in place to lead the United Kingdom in geothermal energy, contributing towards the UK's clean growth strategy. That is why I'm urging the Minister to put Scotland at the heart when considering government investment and to put geothermal energy in Clackmannanshire at the forefront of that investment. Scotland has been at the forefront of every major industrial development in the United Kingdom, from the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th century to oil and gas in the 20th and 21st centuries. It has the infrastructure and the expertise in place to lead the UK, and by putting the investment in now, it could be transformational for the area and for the wider UK. There is no law stopping the UK government from investing directly in Scottish local authorities, least of all the devolution settlement, the various Scotland Acts or the Smith Commissions, especially when the right opportunity arises. And, Mr Deputy Speaker, this is the right opportunity. An opportunity to invest in and improve our renewable energy sector, an opportunity to lower our carbon footprint, to tackle fuel poverty and to bring jobs, prospects and prosperities to one of the most deprived areas in Scotland. And I urge the UK Government to grasp this opportunity and let the people of Clackmannanshire lead the rest of Scotland and the United Kingdom in growing geothermal energy. Now, I make no apologies for keeping Clackmannanshire firmly in the minds of the United Kingdom Government and the decision makers that lead it, as I want to maximise investment coming to the wee county from Westminster and to my wider constituency of Ochil and South Perthshire. Developing geothermal energy in Clackmannanshire has the potential to combine heritage with new technology to bring investment to the county, turning a so-called negative legacy into jobs, training and long-term opportunities for the county. This is what I believe government is for, not to deliver every job, but to ensure every part of our country can take advantage of the opportunities afforded to them. I hope the Minister will help Clackmannanshire achieve its potential this evening.
Minister Clerk. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Well, what a very lively adjournment debate. They rarely get as good as this. A seamless team effort from my honourable friend, the member for Auckland South Perthshire, and his colleagues. A focus on a particularly fascinating new technology area. And may I say, a refreshing change in that we have here members who are passionate about their Scottish constituencies, prepared to stand up and want to work with the UK government rather than just criticise and carp. And I think that sense of working together to deliver this technology is absolutely important. So delighted to talk more about the Clackmannanshire Geothermal Energy Project, looking, as my honourable friend so rightly set out, to innovatively use a local resource from decades of the mining legacy in a way that helps us meet our renewable energy targets and creates jobs and innovation for the future. My honourable friend made reference to our renewable energy successes. We are right, actually, collectively across the UK to be proud of those, thanks to the investments that UK taxpayers have made, the innovation, the working together, north and south and east and west of the borders. We are now very much on target to hit our 30% energy supply from renewables by 2020. In fact, it looks as if we will be substantively beyond that. And Scotland, of course, with its beauty, as my honourable friend actually alluded to, it was a wonderful travel advert also for his constituency, and its natural geographic advantages, plus its engineering expertise, has very much been in the forefront of that. Which brings me to the role of geothermal energy, Mr Deputy Speaker, a critical part of this renewable energy resource, if you like, and it can be used in certain ways. You can use it for heat networks. That is certainly one way to do it, and in fact heat networks is something where the UK government has been investing very substantively. We've set aside over £300 million to invest in district heat networks over the next few years, a really important way to bring this forward. And it's very interesting to understand that deep geothermal power is another opportunity, not just to create heat, but also to actually generate power, as my honourable friend, the member for Stirling, was discussing. And actually, you can therefore generate both heat and power from this resource. And of course, this isn't about finding a new resource, if you like. We have this mining legacy that has created lots of holes in the ground beneath our feet, which have filled up with water, which has become heated, which is then something that is there available without drilling, as my honourable friend said, incredibly deep wells, but actually creating something that is relatively easy to set up. And indeed, I've been very proud to be working with the Coal Authority and others, looking at how we might manage this mining legacy. And across the UK, it has recently been assessed that there are over 2 million gigawatt hours of low-carbon energy stored in mine workings across the UK, something that I feel very strongly we should be looking at seeing how we can extract that. So as I mentioned, there are several ways to use this very valuable resource. We can use it as heat to supply homes and businesses. We can help deliver the clean growth aspects of our industrial strategy because it can be used to provide heat to certain business sectors, and it can also provide opportunities for energy, both through generation but also through storage. There is a lot of work going into the storage capabilities. We know that the problem with renewables is it can be very intermittent. How do you store it in liquid state storage, for example, in some of these deep networks, could be a way to help us lead the world going forward. So we are looking across the UK as to how we might exploit this great resource. But as my honourable friend has so eloquently and passionately set out, we do have opportunities in Clackmannanshire to understand how we might use the local resource better. And he set out the wider benefits from this potential source, not just lower cost, lower carbon energy for his constituents, but creating businesses, creating innovation, creating jobs, reducing energy bills, reducing fuel poverty and reducing social inequalities, and establishing, as he so attractively said, Clackmannanshire as a global authority on geothermal energy, attracting inward investment and innovation from other countries right across the world. So I and my department are very keen to see more of these projects coming forward because they both deliver carbon savings, they deliver cost reductions, and they deliver innovation. And as I mentioned, we are working on the heat networks. Now, as my honourable friend is very well aware, there is a series of competencies between ourselves and the devolved administration, and heat is a devolved matter. But energy, of course, is a reserved matter, and there is, of course, therefore, this huge area between the two parts of our government system where we have opportunities to work together on these sorts of heat projects. Now, my honourable friend and indeed his close close neighbour for Stirling, should be patting themselves on the back for securing the city-region deal worth more than £90 million to the region. The UK government investing more than £45 million, the Scottish government investing, the local councils investing. Truly a good example of partnership. And as I said, it's always better when we work together, a message that is sometimes lost on the honourable members opposite. This ambitious and innovative deal will drive economic growth across the region, with innovation and research right at the heart of the deal, but also focusing on the area's incredible heritage, the natural heritage that is there. And I think we could expand that definition to include the mine workings and the geothermal possibilities. So that is what the Clackmannanshire geothermal energy project is seeking to do. And my department will absolutely support this project, exploring potential funding routes and also sharing learning from other networks across the UK. So to conclude, Mr Deputy Speaker, we are absolutely committed to supporting this project going forward. We see opportunities for high quality, cost effective heating, for creation of renewable energy and providing many other benefits to the area. And I am delighted that my honourable friend has once again brought forward this opportunity and demonstrated the passion and commitment with which both he and his constituents will support it. And it was very encouraging to hear that other local businesses are already coming forward wanting to be part of this. And I'm hoping that this debate is the start of the process. It's allowed us to look at how we might fit this scheme into the various funding streams that are available, and I would love to think that this could be one of the first of the many projects across the UK that will tap back into that resource that is beneath our feet, a resource created by the blood, sweat and tears of many thousands of fine working men, generally men, in the past, and it would be wonderful to think that we could use that legacy in a way that does help us meet the targets of our renewable and low carbon future. The Honourable Gentleman says it's a wee county. He says it's size that matters. No, it's not size that matters, it's what you do with it. It's a little late at night for that kind of commentary, Mr Deputy Speaker, but all I will finish by saying is that I would like to commend my honourable friend for doing such a superb job of standing up for his constituents of Auckland and South Perthshire, presenting the best way of combining the legacy of that wonderful area with some of the low-carbon energy solutions of the future.